Okay, well, I guess I'm as ready as I'll ever be, and I want to thank you folks for attending. I'm Pete Anzalone, president of PubWorks. We're also known as Tracker Software Corp, and I'm going to kick off the 2017 Online Users Conference, our second using this online format, with a brief survey of what's new in our world. Some of these items relate directly to the PubWorks software product, some to our company, and others to the industry in which we all work. So here we go. That's me, picture of me. Some of you probably have met me before. I've met a lot of you, but we're growing, and I haven't met everybody. So, okay. So what's new? 2017, what's new? On the desktop side of PubWorks, the traditional software that many of you use and know, you use it in one way, shape, or form, day in and day out, perhaps. We've added 57 enhancements, corrected 99, let's call them bugs, and added or enhanced 55 reports. We're venturing out from our traditional client-server desktop environment to create more interfaces to products many customers use. We've enhanced and installed dozens of versions of our online service request software, both standard and fleet. And we've been working very hard to perfect our mobile apps. Going forward, PubWorks will be enhanced with an inspections desktop and mobile app. We will build out a number of interfaces to financial and citizen engagement platforms, and we will start creating web-based software tools to allow customers more flexibility to perform distributed functions like cost analysis and reporting via web browser. We've created an interface to a product called OnBase. OnBase is a document management system. We've created a way to transfer photos taken in the field with PubWorks Mobile so that they are automatically integrated and moved into the OnBase document management system. This is a time saver for customers who might use this. So we have one customer in Alabama taking advantage of this. We've also added a direct interface to the Ward fuel system that circumvents the need to perform an export-import operation. PubWorks has integrated and worked with and imported fueling transactions from every fueling system we've ever come across. But Ward is a little bit different in the sense that we are now reading directly from the Ward fueling transaction database, marking those transactions as having been imported, and this makes it a lot easier for the user because they don't have to do an export and then an import. It's a very nice integration. We've made a number of enhancements and customizations to online service requests and fleet online service requests. I'm not sure if customers are aware that we even have these products, but these are great ways to engage citizens and customers, if you will, customers of your fleet services, to submit requests for service. Some people call them work orders. We call them service requests. These customizations that we've made are often minor in nature, but they help make the fit near perfect, and that's what we're after. So a couple of examples perhaps might be some custom department values for service requests and or duplicate detection, sensing and warning that can be customized. This is a fleet service request. Fleet service requests were introduced last year, released last year, but it might not hurt to give it a second brief introduction. This is a way to allow customers of your fleet services department, let's say, to submit requests for vehicle repair service in an automated and orderly manner. So instead of someone just driving their pickup truck or police car or service van to the garage and saying, hey, I need an oil change, or I've got a broken tail light, they can submit these requests in an orderly manner. These requests, as you can see, I hope, from this screenshot, this is a web browser form. This is Internet Explorer, or whatever they call it these days. And it's a form that we can place on your city or county website, and the user can select from a drop-down list of vehicles that you have in your vehicle and equipment inventory, a variety of user-defined reasons as to why you're bringing that vehicle in, a description, a note telling what the serviced item might be. And then at the bottom here, you can see the contact information, which is very important. The name of the person, their email address, their phone number, and also the odometer that's currently being read off the vehicle at the time. So this gives you a way for fleet maintenance staff to contact requesters and schedule work, a way to automatically convert a service request into a fleet work order. Let's just look at the next slide, because that gives us the manifestation of that online form and how it shows up in PubWorks in the desktop application. All those fields have been automatically copied into the desktop form. As many of you know from our training sessions, yellow mandatory, white optional, a lot of mandatory fields there, but they've all been filled out for you by the user himself. There's a very convenient way to, you can see in this red box over here where it says, there's a button that says create fleet work order. That's a way for you to convert that service request into a fleet work order. And then once it's been converted to a fleet work order, of course, you can add the labor and parts that document the repair, tally up the costs, deduct from your inventory, and all that great stuff. And of course, because we've added so many emailing functions, you can email or phone that customer, tell them that their vehicle is ready for pickup and they should come get it. There's also, I'm not displaying it, but there's also a fleet service request status screen, which is terrific for tracking and filtering requests, seeing where they are. It's sort of an ad hoc on-screen reporting mechanism, so you can gauge what kind of volume you're encountering. And it has a lot of the features and functions that everything else in PubWorks has, like column click sorting and double-click navigation. Just going back to the web form, I want to make certain it's clear that this is typically installed as an intranet function, not internet. Intranet function meaning that it's available only internal. It's available to the city or county employees only. You would not expose this to the general public. You wouldn't want them seeing this and telling you that they need their Honda Civic tires rotated, because of course that's got nothing to do with the business of public work. That's a private function. So hopefully that's useful and informative. Another feature that we introduced late last year were the dashboards, and I believe you'll see more of these in subsequent presentations. But the dashboards for service requests and fleet maintenance are a great data visualization tool. They provide a summary, a bird's eye view of your operation. You can see that I've got our service request dashboard in the back, our fleet maintenance dashboard in the front. They display various charts, bar graphs, pie charts of what's cooking, what's happening, analyzing and slicing and dicing the data in a way that's easy to interpret and visual. So data visualization in the computing world is a key thing these days. So I know we made a big effort to get these pushed out. They're free. They do require a SQL Server, but they're nice tools. Our next slide deals with some of the enhancements we've made to service requests. Again, it's just a static screenshot, but I want to point out some important yet subtle features here. You can see up here in the right that I've highlighted or circled the edit button on both the service request log screen and the caller screen. We got a number of requests from customers to help control or prevent inadvertent changes to data. These screens in the past, and in fact they still do if you're so configured that way, these screens can come up in a full-on open mode. You can type in what you need to type. But we found, or we were told, and we listened, that sometimes those screens coming up in that open mode would cause data to be typed over or inadvertently changed, destroyed, and and greater control over those edits was needed. So what we did was we placed a couple of edit buttons on the two forms, and if you need to make a change to a caller screen, that information on the caller screen, or to a service request, you would need to click that button. And very much like the fleet work order screen or the activity screens, that would enable all the fields on that screen for editing purposes. Make your changes, click save, and go on your merry way. To get those buttons to appear, it's a slight configuration change. Down here, draw a little box around it, very poor handwriting that I've got there. You can see on the service request settings screens, there are two check boxes that allow for the software to make those buttons available to you. So customer support can walk you through this. It's a very simple change. You do need admin rights to be able to take advantage or put these changes in place. Not every user has admin rights, but those that do can turn these on with a couple of mouse clicks. And from that point forward, service requests and caller screens will show up with those edit buttons. Also in service request settings, and again, because it's a settings, a configuration screen, it's an admin function, there's a way for you to configure PubWorks for duplication detection. If you have many users, perhaps entering requests independently of each other and or somewhat simultaneously from their different desks, you could potentially be faced with the same person phoning in 4 times during the course of the day complaining about the same pothole. I'm sure that you've never experienced this, but I've heard this on the grapevine, that this kind of thing happens where somebody phones in, hey, have you fixed the pothole yet? Have you fixed the pothole yet? It's like a 6-year-old perseverating over, can I have a cookie? But this, by setting some of those check boxes in a strategic manner, PubWorks will automatically detect the duplicate. It will warn you that a duplicate has been detected. And of course, it's a warning. It's not a full-on preventative measure. You can override that warning and say, well, yes, I know you think it's a duplicate, but we're going to save it anyway. Or you can say, oh, thank you for telling me it's a duplicate. I'm going to cancel this edition. So that duplicate detection can be a very powerful tool for you. It's also been pushed out, that capability pushed out into the online service request functionality that we also have. Something else that I'm not certain many people know about or have taken advantage of is there's a service request appointment calendar based on a scheduled date and scheduled time. And those are, I should have done a better job with the slide, but let me very quickly try to draw a box around those way out over here. So based on that scheduled date and time that I'm not doing a great job of drawing a circle around, by use of those two fields there, you can use an internal calendar or you can push those to an Outlook calendar. For lack of a better term, export to CSV. So I've got an expression I use that I inherited from my father, the store and lose system. We don't want PubWorks to be a system where you're putting data in and can never get anything out. And I think we've gone to great lengths to prevent PubWorks from becoming store and lose. We've got over 600 reports. We've got all sorts of ways to search for data in the system, to look at various status logs, list views, a wide variety of ways to review your data and sort it, filter it. But as we have discovered, that just wasn't quite enough. So over the years, we've expanded and added to the ability, or your ability, to export data to a CSV file. In other words, a text file that can be imported very easily into Microsoft Excel, so that you can do your own data analysis. You can slice and dice that data in a way that's very much custom to your particular need. Clearly we can't anticipate everybody's need and create a special report just for them. So the ability for people to have a flexible method to extract data from PubWorks without having to be a technical user. I mean, you could certainly go to SQL Server and write a query that joins a bunch of tables together and gets the data out that you want. But that's a pretty high-end function. That's a programming task. Not every guy that's walking around the street knows how to do a left join on two tables in a SQL Server database. So we've got at least, in preparing the slide, I found at least 15 places where there's a button on the screen that lets you export the data in view to CSV, to a CSV file that you can name and place anywhere on your PC, on your laptop, on your server. And then once it's there, you can import it into Excel or any other program you want to import it to. So just to run down the list, the activity filter has it. The little known asset registry. The asset registry is a great asset management tool. We built it for our Canadian customers, but it's available to everybody in the United States as well. I'm not certain it gets much use here. I know in Canada it gets pounded on. Asset search is a very powerful tool that lets you scan your assets, search for them based on various criteria. And then once a list has been produced, I know Ed's going to show this off in his work order presentation. Once a list has been produced, the number of things can be done with that list, creating work orders from them. But for the context here, exporting them to CSV is a function you can perform on asset search. Betterments, again, here in the US, a little known PubWorks function. It was created for our Canadian customers, but it can be used down here to sort of specify and document that a major improvement has been made to an asset. You've replaced the engine in a truck. You've replaced the roof on a building. You've repaved a road. The value of that betterment can be applied directly to that asset, and its depreciation schedule can be updated as per. But you might, over time, have a large list of betterments that you've performed, and you might want to export those to CSV. So we've got that capability in betterments. I hope many of you know that service request status screen, the service request status screen, not just a handy reporting tool, it also has CSV export. It has a CSV export button on it. The service request appointment calendar also has an export button for CSV. Ed will show you the work order to-do list tomorrow. Again, it has export capability. There's a parts and materials transaction log in PubWorks. It also has CSV. There's a notes and documents cross-reference screen in PubWorks. It shows you in a nice blue and white grid all the documents, photos, PDFs, and such that you've added to various records throughout the system. I sound like a broken record here. You can export that to CSV as well. Fleet service request status has it. The fleet work order status screen has it. The fuel and odometer log screen has it. The PM schedule and the PM history screens have it. And the parts history screen also has it. So direct export with a button click from these 15 screens in PubWorks for your Excel needs. But also, I know we point this out in trainings, but some people might have forgotten, or some folks might never have attended one of our formal trainings. All of those Crystal Report print preview screens have the ability to export that report data not only to CSV, but directly to Excel. And in a very handy format, of course, is PDF. So getting data out of PubWorks through our standard reports, through various screens in the system, but also through CSV exports, very, very powerful function. I hope that folks take advantage of that. Let's see, we have got a request, excellent idea. A lot of our enhancement requests, if not almost all of them, they come in one way, shape, or form from, customer feedback, and this is a great example of such customer feedback. So just imagine you've got, and the two examples I'm going to cite are sort of winter snow related. So you folks in warm, sunny Florida, you don't really need to pay attention to this, but you really should, because because I'm going to use a winter example, I'm sure that there are non-winter examples that would be quite apropos. So imagine that in one case, we saw recently a customer in New Jersey for all their vehicles, all their snowplow vehicles and winter maintenance vehicles, they created a project called, 2017-18 winter prep. And all the fleet work orders that were performed to prep those vehicles by perhaps putting, studded snow tires on certain trucks, on putting plow blades, getting the dump beds ready. All that work performed was documented in fleet work orders, but was also tied to a specific project they created in PubWorks. The other example I have is a example of a snow event, where people are actually out there, where workers are out there over a day or maybe a 2 or 3 day event. We haven't seen one in Colorado yet, unfortunately, but here in Colorado, we'll get 3, 4, 5 days in a row of snow, and a county or a city will be out plowing constantly. And to capture the cost of that snow event, a project is often used, and all the activity records and crew activities and route activity records are aggregated into that project. But also, it would be terrific if, when a vehicle breaks down, we could also pull that maintenance, that fleet maintenance cost into the project. So the fleet work order record or screen has been enhanced to include that project capability, that project linkage. And we've also added reporting capabilities so that that information can be folded into project cost reports and fleet maintenance reports. So I hope people can take advantage of that. I think it's a great enhancement. I think that it's very useful. Okay, moving on. Next slide. A recent enhancement we made is a way to find, if you will, sort of outliers or exceptions with respect to employee hours. So new filters to look through activity records based on the employee hours that you've entered. So on the activity filter, we've added a new filtering section where you can sort of scan or search for the activity records that fall in a certain range or outside of a certain range. It's a great way for you to find some exceptions. For example, you might be running a report and you notice that Charlie Brown, instead of having 40 hours this week, has 44 hours. So finding an individual work record where perhaps he has more than 8 hours in a given day, the activity filter can be used for that. The same capability has been built into the employee cost report screens. And this is a very powerful tool. I hope you people will start taking advantage of it. Let's just take a look at that, where that shows up in PubWorks here. So the activity filter, in case you didn't know, is found off the system menu. Give it a second to show up here. Hoping you can see my screen. I hope my screen resolution is appropriate for the webinar. But this new section over here in the lower right allows us to, again, forgive my drawing, it's just abominable. But I might want to search or use these fields to search for any activity record where we have more than 15 hours. So I type in that 15 hours, and then you can see I've got a number of outliers here. I've got a number of records that employee hours are way above, what a typical worker would see in a day. So I've doctored my data to make it a little dramatic here, to let that data kind of show up and really stand out. But this threshold search can be a very powerful tool when trying to find that needle in a haystack. Again, it kind of goes back to the store and lose. You put something in the system, it's important that you can find it again, make a change to it, save it, and move on. Just to flesh this out, the employee cost report screen over here on the reports menu, it too has at the bottom of it a threshold or an exception reporting mechanism at the bottom here. So you can take advantage of that either on the activity filter back here or the employee cost report screen. I hope that you find that useful. The activity filter, by the way, is a particularly useful tool. It's got a lot of great capabilities for finding stuff, analyzing. It's not only just that, it's also a way for you to get sort of a snapshot report because it's providing a cost summary over here in blue. And as you all probably know, I hope you know that we use blue ink in fields like this for read-only data, data that's produced by the program itself, not data that you're keying in. Another feature that we introduced late last year was the project estimate capability. It's a way for you to create, let's call them dummy activity records, and link them to a project for the purposes of calculating or estimating the cost of what that project might be. Daily activities and crew activities can be, by virtue of these two buttons over here on the lower left, let me just point them out with these two buttons on the lower left, can be used to create estimate daily activities and estimate crew activities. And you can use them just like a daily activity, except they're very much segregated. They are specific for estimates only. They have some of their data validation turned off. So in other words, you could select an employee and say, well, we know that the labor for this employee is going to be 100 hours. You know, in a typical daily activity, we don't permit you to enter 100 hours for a daily activity because you can't work more than 24 hours in a day. But on a daily activity for an estimate, you can put in any number of hours you wish. The same is true for equipment usage times. So you can draw on all the resources in your system, employees and equipment, materials and contractors, and put in estimated values, and the software will calculate those estimates and keep them separate from the real work that might have gone on in that project. And then there's some very nice reports for estimate worksheets and invoicing that have also been built into PubWorks. So the project cost report screen has been enhanced with these estimate and invoice worksheets. The estimate worksheet clearly comes from the estimates that you've added to a project. The invoicing is more of a real or actual costs incurred document or report that can be used for sort of a cover sheet or as sort of a means of reimbursement from perhaps an outside agency for whom you've done work or a different department within your city and county for whom you perform work. Also being shown here are two force account reports that we've added for the purposes of FEMA. These reports appear when you print them in very much almost the precise format of the FEMA documents that we've seen distributed by FEMA reps around the country. So these FEMA labor summary and equipment summary force account reports draw on activity data that you've keyed in and linked it to a project for a FEMA disaster. Making use of these force account reports will certainly expedite the reimbursement process that you hopefully won't have to go through, but as we know, disasters strike and people have to deal with them. PubWorks is a standard bearer on a lot of that cleanup and recovery, and documenting that work is something that's easily done in PubWorks, and we've created these reports to make the reimbursement process all the easier. Along the same lines, and Mike will show this in his presentation in PubWorks Mobile, PubWorks Mobile has been enhanced to support what we call the equipment operator mode. The equipment operator mode is a way by which it's very direct, the linkage between an employee and the vehicle or equipment that they used. FEMA requires this, PubWorks makes this easy, and the desktop software, the crew activity in PubWorks supports this, the daily activity supports this, and PubWorks Mobile, the work app also supports this. So key feature, very powerful function. You'll see more of that tomorrow. Something that I'm not going to demonstrate or show, but I'll just mention, is that our departmentalization module. Many of our customers use departmentalization to create sort of virtual different PubWorks databases all within the same organization. So as an example, the building maintenance guys can be kept separate. All their work can be kept separate from perhaps what goes on in traffic and signals, which can also be kept separate from what's going on in streets and roads. So within one aggregated PubWorks database, departmentalization lets you set up virtual sub-departments or sub-databases that can all be seen individually without encumbering the users with a lot of information and data that really has nothing to do with them. So it keeps their focus clear, keeps them from getting confused, keeps their view of the PubWorks world as small and appropriate as possible. But departmentalization has recently been enhanced to work on a location district basis. You know, we've got a number of customers that have various districts. We've got a customer in Montana, they call them camps. So getting that all segregated in departmentalization was important. We know in Texas, the precincts are another way that counties are districted, but also there's a lot of cities. I can think of a couple of cities that we know that have various wards, and those wards represent what we would call a district. So departmentalization, districting could be a powerful tool for many customers going forward. Over the last year or so, we've been trying to enhance our equipment, our asset replacement reporting equipment and location replacement reports. We've added a number of features here based on, again, typical customer feedback. So I'm not certain if these functions are well known, but they are very nice functions, very powerful functions. We've got the concept in PubWorks of assets, but those assets, we're using the term asset as a very generic, a very generalized term. We can break that down into locations and equipment. You know, locations being the physical assets in the field, equipment being your rolling stock of vehicles, cars, motor graders, pickup trucks, plow trucks, you name it. But both of those assets support replacement funding concepts, replacement year. On the vehicle side, there's registration expiration, there's odometer considerations as well. So there's a number of ways to ask the system, what do I need to replace next year? Based on any criteria you hopefully can think of that matches up well with some of the attributes that you're storing for those assets. So these replacement functions, these replacement reports, I'm hoping will be of interest to you and be put to greater use. Some of these other features are somewhat esoteric, but have some very nice uses. We added recently an ability to, instead of using a specific email address in the from field for service request emails to a caller, you can instead substitute a generic email. So instead of that email having been sent from Charlie Brown at uraycounty.gov, maybe that email will come from a generic source like Road and Bridge at uraycounty.gov. So it's a way for the recipient of that email to respond to sort of a generic email, and this way perhaps a wide number or a variety of people will have access to that email address, and they can review and react to that response. I really can't show that because it's kind of hidden, but we have a neat way and a simple way of implementing that. There's the concept of embedded calculators and hyperlinks in PubWorks. You know, hyperlinks are not new, certainly, and these calculators are not new either, but they're spreading. They're moving around, and we're trying to put them in places in the software where we think it's appropriate and useful. But I don't think a lot of people know about them. So, you know, the hyperlink, just like in an internet browser, is just a blue underscored hunk of text. that you know that if you click on it in the web browsing world, you'll go to some other location. You'll navigate to someplace else. So up here in the employee section, you can see Len Webb is an employee here. He's got a hyperlink, or Lariat Loop as a location. If I click on that hyperlink for location, it takes me right to that Lariat Loop asset record. So that's the hyperlink. They will navigate you to or take you to different places in the software. But in a variety of fields like this material quantity field, and you can see it has a tooltip. I hope you can see that it has a tooltip, and the tooltip says use embedded calculator. Well, you know, what if I had, you know, I get a piece of paperwork, and the person who filled in the paperwork said that I used 4 boxes of this, and each box has 16 or 12.5 units in it. So I might want to say 16 times 12.5. Now, some of you Rain Man types might be able to do that in your head. I certainly can't. But if I just use that calculator in there by typing in that little tiny arithmetic formula, 16 star for times, or plus or minus or divide, PubWorks will take those two numbers, multiply them together, and look at that, produce the number 200. So the tooltip will, when you mouse over a field, will tell you that an embedded calculator is there. They're around the system. So I hope you can find them and make use of them. The activity filter, and again, I'm touching on the activity filter. This is a very minor change, but a very powerful one indeed. Our sales guys have told me that when they do their demos, the activity filter is a very interesting thing to show new customers. And I was a little surprised because I've always thought of it as a sort of a techie tool to kind of rummage through your data. But what I've learned, thanks to direct customer experience, is that no, it's a lot more than that. It's a great way to view your data, analyze it, slice and dice it. And as we pointed out earlier, we've added this employee threshold capability here for finding exceptions. But we also, to make it more comprehensive, added a fleet checkbox there. So if you've got fleet maintenance or the fleet maintenance module, you'll be able to fold into the activity filter all the work and employee hours that are part of fleet work orders as well. So earth-shattering, perhaps no, but very, very useful and powerful just the same. Another feature that we added, and again, this is on the user power screen, we found that customers were not too happy with the fact that certain users could add and modify activity records, but also delete them. We have certain customers that say, oh, once an activity record is added, we don't want it deleted unless you're an admin user. So what we did was we separated the add modify right there from the delete power on activity records and user powers. So again, it's all about data integrity. It's very similar in a sense to adding those edit buttons to the service request log and service request caller screens. It's a way to help you ensure that your data is being maintained properly and not, for lack of a better term, abused. So sort of a small enhancement, but very, very powerful, very, very useful. Another enhancement we've made of late is maybe you don't even know about this function, but we've got the notes and documents cross-reference screen, and you can see that here I've got 7,123 documents attached to various records in PubWorks. You might be searching for a certain file name that you know of, or a certain note or description that you added when attaching that document to a record. So we've got a locate button that we've placed on this screen down here at the bottom. And by making use of that and just typing in some text, PubWorks will perform a wildcard search. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the pothole concept. So I'm just typing in the word pothole, and it found 60 documents that have that either in their description or part of their file name here. So, I know that from our work in our company internally, a lot of documents go back and forth. We attach documents to customer records, and sometimes the documents aren't named the way we'd like them to be named, and then finding that document can be a real hassle. So we've tried to make that hassle go away, or you can deal with it at the very least by using that locate button. On the equipment screen, let's take a look at equipment. So PubWorks data, equipment. I'll look at some pickup trucks perhaps. We added a barcode field. Barcodes have been part of the parts and materials inventory for quite some time. But we also know that equipment and vehicles have barcodes on them, and it'd be nice to locate them based on that barcode number. If you have a barcode scanner attached to your PC or laptop, you could make use of that. But barcode lookups for equipment can be performed on the equipment screen now, and they can also be used to insert a vehicle or equipment on a fleet work order directly. So that barcode, another small enhancement, but some powerful ramifications, some nice effects to that. And let's see, my last item on the list, a personal favorite of mine. This used to drive me crazy while testing and looking at customer data. Fleet work order screen. The fleet work order screen, we've got, and if you've been to one of my trainings, and I know our trainers try to follow the same sort of pattern. Fleet work order screen has this header section where you say what vehicle you're working on and why. Then you've got a big notes section here. And then you've got these two sections for details. You've got labor here. I'll just make a very scraggly L. And you've got parts down here. Well, here's a fleet work order with 5 labor items and 12 parts items, and you can't see them all. And if you've got a big screen, a big 27-inch screen, it would be frustrating for you not to be able to see all these items here, because you're wondering if all the hours are appropriately inserted on this. And by being able to view more data, being able to view more of the screen, you'll be able to know that this record has been entered properly, it's all buttoned up, or it's missing something. So like most Windows screens, now you can grab that lower right-hand corner and expand that screen. I can hear the oohs and ahs from the 111 attendees on the call right now. But so it's, I think, a terrific enhancement because it lets people see what they're doing better, gives them less chance for error, a greater chance for clean data and success. So that sort of does it with what's new for my presentation this morning. I really hope you found this interesting and useful. And I'll be glad to answer any questions from the audience.
So we do have a couple questions. And one question, these new features are not showing up in my version of PubWorks. How do I update?
That's a good question. We are trying our best to update as many customers as quickly as possible to the most recent version. Typically, we preemptively, or proactively, I should say, reach out and ask if customers want the latest version. But a great way to find out whether or what your version is on the help menu. You can go to About. So there's a couple of things. The software version number is really important. We need to, or you need to understand that that's sort of a measure by which we can gauge what features and functions are in the product. Also, there's various things that the About screen highlight that will give you information about not only your version, but what you have, sort of what you've purchased from us. So let's take a quick look at that. When I go to Help and then the About menu, it brings up this screen. It shows me right there what software version I'm running. If you are observant, you'll also notice it in the title bar. We're showing that software version up there. So I'm running 6.0.15, database version 60. This is important data. You can, from this screen, create an email message to support@pubworks.com that comes to our customer support team. And in that email message, PubWorks, the software, will automatically insert into the email body the version number, your name, your phone number, everything, not everything, but a lot of what we'd like to know about your current situation, your current installation. And version number is key among them. Another thing here in these sort of disabled checkboxes, this displays the various product modules that you as a customer have purchased. So certain items may be turned off because you haven't bought them. Certain items will be on. And if you have those items on and you're not seeing that feature, well, it's probably because you don't necessarily have the most recent version, or maybe your user powers are preventing that. So that's kind of a customer service question. And
Pete,
use
what is
this email function to let us know what you've got.
Sorry to interrupt there. Pete, what is the newest version?
6.0.15.
Okay, that was another question. And then I've got Daniel Keating here, and he would like to ask his question. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Ellen. Hi, Pete. How you doing?
Good. How are you today?
All right. I'm just checking to see if it's something that is integrated in the program that I can't change, or if there's a setting I can change when in the materials drop-down boxes we've added. There's one for landfill tickets, and if I designate a driver to do nothing but run trucks back and forth to a landfill, and I just want to keep track of his hours and put the ticket in to calculate the payload and the charge, it will only let me do one ticket per entry. So I have to say 2 hours, employee X went to the landfill. It'll only let me put one ticket in. Then I have to save it and resubmit a whole nother daily task.
So yeah, I think I understand.
I just can't keep adding.
I'm sorry?
I just can't keep adding tickets. It won't let me. It won't. Well, it says it won't let me duplicate.
Well, I'm not 100% certain. I'd have to see. We would have to do a go-to meeting and look at your specific issue. But let me point something out. Is that there are, because I think you're talking about the daily activity screen. There are ways to make the daily activity screen what we call reuse values from the prior entry that you put in. So if your entries are highly redundant, the same employee, the same day, the same task, the same vehicle or equipment, and the only thing that's varying is the number of hours, these reuse last capabilities or settings can get PubWorks, the PubWorks activity screen, to copy everything from the last record you saved into the new record you're entering. This way,
I use that frequently.
Well, then
that's a great feature.
Maybe we can make more use of it. But either way, we need to look at your specific case, very directly to kind of come up with the best solution for you.
All right.
Thanks, Daniel, for your question. Okay, one other question here. Why did you separate the delete from add modify on all user power categories?
Why don't we?
Yes, why didn't you separate the delete from the add modify on all user categories, power categories, excuse me?
That's a great question. And the answer is, it's sort of a subjective answer. These add, modify, delete capabilities have been here for a long, long time. And we see our vision of the way the software is used, and this could be not 100% valid across the entire customer base. The employee screen and equipment screens, these screens are not used as frequently as a screen like the activity screen. The activity screen is a transactional screen. It's used day in, day out. Potentially hundreds of entries are made every single day on those screens. So more control over delete is mandatory, is necessary, because also there's a larger variety of users making those entries. Our vision was that contractors and employees and equipment locations and et cetera, these are more administrative functions. They're not like pure full-on admin functions, but they sort of have an admin flavor to them. And as such, We have not made that separation. We certainly could going forward, but it's a pretty big, it might not seem like it's a difficult thing to separate these two check boxes, turning one into two, but it's a pretty major undertaking. So right now, I think we're going to probably leave that the way it is. We've got that separation on the other transactional screens like fleet work orders and service requests. But here for some of these more building block functions, it is the way it is for now. So I'm sorry I couldn't say, oh yes, we're going to do that tomorrow, but I don't think that we are.
Well, thank you. Next question. Edit restriction button not in locations.
Yes, I think I understand. If you go to a location record, we don't have a specific edit button here. Again, the reason for that is that the notion of how this would be used is a trained user would come to this screen and navigate to the record they're interested in, and they'd be able to make whatever change they wish to make. It's premised on the concept of a competent, well-meaning user. Now, for users that are a little more casual, we've restricted their ability to edit because by virtue of the fact that we can take, add, modify, and delete away. And also, if we think about add, modify, and delete, it sort of made sense to us as software designers. If you can add a record, why couldn't you modify a record? And if you could add or modify a record, why couldn't you delete a record that you added? So there's some sort of philosophical arguments for why these capabilities are the way they are. But going back, I think, to the question, as I interpret it, is there's no explicit edit button here. The concept is that the user is competent, knows what they're doing, and they've got that ability to make the changes they need to make without having to explicitly click something. Again, this is not a transactional screen like an activity record or a fleet work order or a service request. It's sort of a building block screen. It's sort of a screen that doesn't get necessarily looked at all that frequently, but that's the way we are with it right now.
Thank you. And then Patrick is asking, any plans on direct data share with FuelMaster?
Yes, FuelMaster? Yes, there is. That's a very good question. I'm excited about this prospect because we have an associate, a fellow that our Ed Mitchell knows very well from the trade show circuit that he's traveled. And I met him recently, I think for the second time, but this is the first time I really had even though I had no voice, I had a good conversation with him. He was very good at listening to me. I had laryngitis. But we've talked about a way for us to directly reach in to FuelMaster, just like we've done with Ward, to grab FuelMaster transactions. And that's something we're going to be pursuing after the new year.
Okay, thank you. Another question is from William. Is the version automatically updated over time? When a version is updated, is it backwardly compatible with older versions of SQL?
Well, as far as our version goes, I mean, when we create a new release of the software, we up the version number. But the version number has two pieces, and let's point that out. Let me just, it's kind of technical, but it's worthwhile pointing out, I believe. If we look at the version number, right now I've got version 6015. So the first two numbers, the 60, is meant to represent our database version. We're database version 60, and within that database version, we are software release number 15. So when we create a new software version, when we create a new release, the next one we create will be 6016, 6017 after that. Soon we're going to be moving to database version 61, so you'll see our version numbers changing from 60 let's say 16 to 61.01. So our software version is going up and up all the time. With regard to backward compatibility in SQL Server, We do not take advantage of advanced SQL Server functions that are at risk of changing over time. We are compatible with SQL Server 2005 all the way up to SQL Server, to the best of my knowledge, 2014, because I'm running it on my desktop. I'm running it right here. I'm running in SQL 14 right now. So all versions of SQL we're compatible with. So I don't think that I think we are backward compatible to those versions. So if you're running PubWorks in SQL Server 2014 right now, and for some reason you need to go back to 2012, there'd be no problem. We'd have to do a little, it's just the problem, actually there is a little problem, I should point this out, because I'm sure my customer support desk is rolling their eyes. We would have to take that backup out of 14 and convert it to a 12 backup, because Microsoft doesn't provide the backward compatibility, but we have a way to do it.
Thank you. Amanda is asking, when a service request has been completed, can a copy of the request be sent by email to other departments that do not have PubWorks access?
Well, yes, I think it can. When you are looking at the PubWorks service request, whether it's open or closed, off the reports menu, there are some email options. There are email options over here with these hyperlinks on the right-hand side to send an email to, in this case, the taken by or the assignee or everybody in the department. But when you get that email message off the main menu, the reports menu, that's going to bring up Outlook. That Outlook email message I was looking for just took a while for it to come up.
Okay.
To go back to the caller's question about email, you can see this Outlook message. It's got most of the nitty-gritty of the service request in the body, but that address field at the top is changeable. And in fact, if you're using Outlook, you'll have access to your entire contact list to address the email as you need to.
Thank you, Pete. Another question. William is asking, the employee list seems to order by ID, not alphabetically. Can this be changed?
Well, you can change your data. So let's talk about what sorting is, because the numbers, when we look at an employee code, this is not a number. This is alphanumeric text. So it's kind of techy. If you've got a mix of employee numbers with alphanumeric, it's going to sort them based on their alphabetic value. Now, I'm logged in as an admin, so this ID column is here. Most people are not going to see that ID column on the extreme left, but this employee number is an alphanumeric field. Mine is pretty much numeric, but you can see as I click this column heading, I do have this employee with code RW, employee number RW. So it's really a function of your data. And I think that if you did a support session, a go-to meeting with one of our support techs, they could look at your data directly and perhaps offer some advice as to how best to structure that data so that the sorting you get is the sorting you want. There's also a user power setting that when you navigate through these employee records, they can be either in name order or in code number order. That's a user power setting that you can yourself manipulate. On user powers miscellaneous, far right-hand side, there is a general information sort order. So right now I'm set up by code. You can see that radio button for code is selected and name is not selected. So as I step through my employees, it's being done in employee code order. But again, that code order is an alphanumeric, and computer sorting on alphanumerics, if you've got a mix, is not going to look the way you'd expect if they were purely numeric.
Great. Thanks, Pete.